2 days ago, I asked you who authorized the war with Iran. Today, I want to ask a different question, a deeper one. Why Iran last? Because before the bombs fell on Tehran, there was Venezuela. And before the pressure on Cuba, there was Venezuela too. Venezuela, then Cuba, then Iran. That sequence is not random. And when you understand what connects those three countries, not politically, but structurally, you will understand something about this moment that the breaking news coverage is completely missing. This is the third voice. The first video asked who authorized this war. This one asked why it was built this way and what the Constitution says about the answer. Stay with me. Let's establish the facts before we go anywhere else. January 3rd, 2026, U.S. Special Operations Forces captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in pre-dawn raid. 32 Cuban military and intelligence officers were killed in that same operation. Cuba's own government confirmed it. Within 48 hours, Trump warned Cuba it was ready to fall. February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury against Iran. Supreme Leader Khamenei was killed. Iran retaliated with strikes across 9 countries. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil flows, was threatened with closure. 3 operations, 3 countries, 2 months, not one single vote in Congress. And before we go anywhere else, I need to ask you something. Why that order? Venezuela, then pressure on Cuba, then Iran. Everyone is covering what happened. Nobody is asking why the sequence. When you understand the sequence, you stop watching a foreign policy story and you start watching a constitutional one. People keep asking, why did we go after Venezuela? Venezuela has no nuclear weapons, no ICBM. It cannot strike the continental United States. So why? Here's what the media keeps burying in paragraph 9. Iran didn't just have allies in Venezuela. Iran had infrastructure there. Iran had been transferring drones and missile technology to Venezuela for over 2 decades. Reports going back to 2010 described a secret agreement to build a jointly operated missile base on Venezuelan soil run by Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Hezbollah, Iran's most capable proxy, had fundraising and logistic networks embedded in Venezuela, raising money through ties to narcotics traffickers. And when U.S. forces captured Maduro, they didn't find Venezuelans guarding him. They found Cubans, 32 Cuban military and intelligence officers dead inside Venezuela. Cuba had denied having any military presence there since 2008. So ask yourself the question again, why Venezuela first? Because you don't strike the headquarters until you've shut down the forward operating base. That's not a conspiracy theory, that's military logic. And it raises a constitutional question nobody wants to answer. Let's talk about Cuba. Because Cuba tends to get lost between Venezuela and Iran, and it shouldn't. Cuba was not a bystander. Cuba had been deeply embedded in Maduro's government for years, providing intelligence support and personal security for Maduro himself. So Humberto Roca, one of the senior Cuban officers killed in the January operation, had previously been responsible for Fidel Castro's personal security. That's the fingerprint of a state security apparatus treating Venezuela as an extension of itself. And Iran used that Cuban-Venezuelan axis as a sanctions bypass corridor, selling oil for gold to fund its proxy networks across the Middle East. So Trump's predictions that Cuba was ready to fall wasn't just bravado. It was describing a cascade effect that was already being engineered. Cut the supply chain, collapse the financial oxygen, then deal with Iran directly. Whether you agree with that strategy is a political question. Whether the president had the constitutional authority to execute it unilaterally, that is the question this channel exists to answer. Here's something the cable news panels keep not saying out loud. The World Powers Resolution of 1973 requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of committing U.S. forces to hostilities. And Congress then has 60 days to authorize the action, or the president must withdraw. That law was passed over Nixon's veto by a two-thirds majority in both chambers because Congress decided it had surrendered enough of its constitutional authority. Now count with me. Venezuela, January 3rd, no congressional authorization. Iran nuclear strikes, June 2025, no congressional authorization. Operation Epic Fury, February 28, 2026, no congressional authorization. 3 operations, 3 countries, 0 votes. The administration informed congressional leaders about Venezuela after the operation had already begun. Now, presidents have stretched the World Powers Resolution before. Both parties. That's not new. But 3 unilateral operations against 3 different countries in under 8 months? The clock isn't just ticking. It has been ticking 3 times simultaneously. And Congress has been mostly quiet. That silence has a constitutional cost. When a president bypasses Congress to take military action, the legal justification usually rests on one word: imminent. Imminent threat. No time to consult Congress. We had to act now. That argument has constitutional grounding in the president's Article 2 authority as commander-in-chief. Emergency powers are real. The founders understood that the president might need to act before Congress could convene. But here is what we know about the Iran operation. Pentagon briefers acknowledged to congressional staff, reported by CNN, that Iran was not planning to strike U.S. forces unless Israel attacked Iran first. Let me say that again. The administration's own Pentagon briefers told Congress that Iran had no plans to strike us preemptively. That is not a Democratic talking point. That is not an opposition leak. That came from inside the building that planned the operation. And separately, the Oman foreign minister, who had been mediating talks between Washington and Tehran, confirmed that both sides had made significant progress toward a deal in the hours before the bombs fell. Diplomacy was still active when the operation began. If there was no imminent threat, if diplomacy was still in progress, then the legal justification for bypassing Congress becomes significantly weaker, and the constitutional question becomes sharper. Did the president have the authority to launch this war? That question is not anti-military. It is not anti-American. It's the exact question the founders built the Constitution to answer. Here's what makes this moment constitutionally different from every other unauthorized military action in modern history. Presidents have launched single unauthorized strikes before. Obama in Libya, Clinton in Kosovo. You can debate each one individually. But what happened between January and February of 2026 is not a single debatable decision. It's a coordinated, sequenced, multi-country campaign planned months in advance, executed in stages, with each operation enabling the next. The CIA was tracking Maduro's movement for months before January. The military buildup in the Caribbean began in August 2025. The oil blockade started in December. Venezuela was step 1 of a campaign that ended with bombs falling on Tehran. That is not a president responding to an emergency. That is a president conducting a war, a designed, sequenced multi-theater war without ever asking Congress to authorize it at any stage. One unauthorized strikes is a decision a president can defend. A coordinated campaign across 3 countries over 8 months is a policy, and policy-level war powers belong to Congress. The Constitution is unambiguous about that. I want to be honest with you about something. Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, these are not sympathetic governments. Maduro stole elections. Cuba has oppressed its people for 67 years. Iran's regime killed citizens in the streets for protesting. I am not here to defend any of them, but here's what I need you to hear. The Constitution was not written to protect popular decisions. It was written to constrain power, including power used for popular ends. In the last video, I asked who authorized a single military strike on Iran. Today, the question is bigger. Who authorized a coordinated, multi-country campaign planned over 8 months, executed against 3 nations in sequence, with no congressional vote at any stage? And here's what connects to what the Supreme Court said 8 days ago. The court ruled that the president cannot exercise a core congressional power, even for good reason, without clear authorization from Congress. They applied that principle to tariffs. A tariff does not kill anyone. The same authority this president used to remove a dictator without asking Congress is the same authority a future president could use against a country you care about for reasons you find horrifying. The structure matters, not just when you disagree with the president. It matters most when you agree with him. That is the question this moment is asking all of us. Whose America goes to war? The president's or ours? The third voice is not here to tell you what to think about Venezuela, Cuba, or Iran. We are here to make sure that when history looks back at this moment, ordinary Americans understood what was happening constitutionally, not just militarily. If you haven't seen the first video, the one that asked who authorized the war on Iran, it's linked below. Watch it first, then come back here. The 2 videos are one argument. The founders gave the war power to Congress for a reason. That reason does not expire when the enemy is unpopular. It does not expire when the cause feels just. It does not expire when the president is from your party. It is the permanent design of a republic that believes the people, through their elected representatives, decide when their sons and daughters go to war. If this helped you see more clearly, share it with someone who is watching the explosions but not asking the deeper questions. I'll see you in the next one.